Chad. It's great to have you around here. Chad, we would like to start with telling you, let us know about yourself and your role at Gratis Internet Inc.
Sure. Well, Gratis Internet is an internet marketing firm based in Washington, D.C., in the United States. I'm the database architect there, so I'm basically responsible for architecting new database designs and solutions to solve whatever given problems we're having in storing data. Much of the data that Gratis Internet works with is your typical OLTP type system, so we work with very high transactional volumes. And then we transfer that data across quite a wide geographic link, and then we aggregate that data and try to get insight into that data to make better business decisions that drive the products and deliverables we can provide to our consumers. So I'm basically responsible for anything to do with storing, retrieving, and getting insight into all of the data that we gather and store.
Cool. Chad, can you give our viewers a taste of some of the new and game-changing functionality in SQL Server 2008 Cat9?
Sure. Well, there's actually quite a bit there. SQL 2008 actually really focuses on delivering features and functionality that will allow you to leverage your data warehousing scenarios, ETL, and getting insight into data that you have. So SQL 2008 is really about delivering value and providing information from the data that people store on a day-to-day basis. There's many new features in analysis services and SSIS that help build upon that type of platform. And the database engine enhancements are really all about improving and allowing SSIS and analysis services to leverage reading, writing, and pulling storing also large volumes of data around so that you can actually provide some information and derive some business decisions from all the data that you have.
That's great. Chad, what are the 3 things that are new in SQL Server 2008 which you find are the most valuable?
That's a tough question. In the database engine, I would say there's a couple big things. Data compression is obviously a large one, really about storing data more efficiently. So you can, depending on the types of data that you're storing, your compression ratios anywhere from 30 to 60% or even higher. And when you're talking about the volumes of data that people store today, that can actually be quite significant. You also have a great new feature called the Resource Governor, which allows you to define different workloads and actually define the amount of resources on the system that those different types of workloads can use and consume. In the ETL world, so in SSIS, there's lots of improvements in parallelizing your pipeline. So CPU manufacturers today are actually moving away from building faster processors and moving more towards adding cores to CPUs. So parallel processing is going to become paramount in terms of the way that software can leverage parallel processing in computer systems going forward. SSIS has many improvements in this space to build upon, for example, parallelizing large trees of moving data. You also have the ability to get insight into changes in your data with a new feature called Change Data Capture, which allows you to pull net and gross changes from your data without modifying your database schema at all. In the data warehousing front, there's lots of improvements around Snowflake and star schema query processing, which in any data warehouse is a common issue. So there's a lot of improvements there. There's also many improvements in parallelism, again, to follow the same paradigm of adding cores to CPUs as opposed to faster CPUs moving forward.
That's great. Chad, one of the key benefits of the new RDBMS architecture is apparently the data compression feature. Would you advise businesses to try it in a safe environment, such as a virtual server, or recommend that they try it by completely divorcing themselves from the SQL Server 2005?
Well, data compression actually, of course, it's a SQL 2008 feature, and it's an enterprise-only feature. So you actually won't be able to get any insight into how you'll use data compression or what types of improvements you'll receive from data compression until you actually put your data on SQL 2008. So you have a couple of options there. Of course, we're always going to recommend and hope that you would take some precaution and try your migrations and move to SQL 2008 in a test or dev environment, which could be virtualized before you obviously move your production system. Once you have that data migrated to a SQL 2008 platform, there's actually built-in functionality to allow you to, at a table level, determine how much improvement or what types of compression ratios you can expect to receive if you enable data compression in one of the 3 different varieties that you have. So obviously with compression you're going to sacrifice some CPU time for less I/O operations. Generally that's a very easy trade-off for most situations. And using those estimation functionality procedures that are available will definitely give you an idea as to whether you should or should not use compression for given tables. The granularity of partitioning in SQL 2008 is actually at the partition level, so you can actually enable partitioning at a very fine grain level. So you don't have to do it, for example, for an entire database or for an entire table even. So you can actually use different kinds of different kinds of compression for different tables or different partitions in your environment for whatever fits your appropriate needs.
That's great. Chad, with regards to partitioning that we were also talking about, what are the new improvements and enhancements in SQL Server 2008?
Well, one of the big enhancements with partitioning in 2008 is the ability to have multi-threaded operations within a partition. So in SQL 2005 and before, this was particularly a problem in your data warehousing scenarios. You would be limited to a single thread per partition. So for example, if you had a very large fact table in your data warehouse that was partitioned across 50 different partitions, you'd be limited to at most 50 threads to run in parallel to process the data. And if you were processing only 2 partitions of that data, then you're limited to 2 threads. SQL 2008 alleviates this by allowing multi-threaded operations within a partition. Additionally, many of the new features in SQL 2008, for example, data compression, like we were talking about a minute ago, actually allow you the ability to use different types or the granularity of the partition to compress your data, for example. So that's going to be a great enhancement as well.
All right. Chad, a key component to any distributed architecture built with SOA methodologies in mind is the database infrastructure. With the release of SQL Server 2008, what are the new features that are available that makes it easier to implement service-oriented database architecture?
Well, the biggest things you're going to see here are SQL 2005 introduced a feature called Service Broker, which was asynchronous messaging for the database engine. And it was a very highly adopted functionality from SQL 2005, and it was even more adopted more so than I think Microsoft expected. SQL 2008 really builds upon that success and makes it easier to use service broking in SQL Server 2008. So you get things like built-in support in Management Studio for all the types of service brokering DDL operations. You also get a brand new troubleshooting tool for service brokering, which allows you to troubleshoot configuration issues and network connectivity issues. So that's going to be a big assistance as well. In the past, you would have to use a mix of things such as a network trace or a profile trace or perf mon captures and things like that, and kind of correlate them together. There's also many XML enhancements in SQL 2008 which are going to help you in any sort of service-oriented architecture. XML is a very popular structure for passing data around, so that's going to obviously aid you as well.
Chad, can you list any third-party tools that you find useful to have SQL Server developer or admin?
Well, there's actually lots of them out there. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the third-party tools. I don't use many of them, but there are many very, very good tools. Quest makes a great suite for both administration, development and architecture, decision-making, warehousing the information that you capture, auditing your systems. Of course, SQL 2008 actually alleviates a lot of those niche areas that third-party tools used to thrive off of. Idera also makes a great suite of tools for factoring your database server objects and also for capturing changes to database objects and synchronizing your dev, test, and production systems. There's obviously quite a wide swath of third-party tools out there, but again, I think you'll find that SQL 2008 really plugs a lot of the gaps that third-party tools filled in the past. So, but it also introduces many new features and functionality that give third-party developers and companies the potential to actually derive even more value and fill additional gaps. So I think that's what another big thing you'll see coming up after 2008 is a lot of the new features are built with an extensible nature in mind. So third-party developers and companies rather will start leveraging that functionality that is exposed, and you'll really see a whole new set of powerful suites be evolve from that.
Okay, that's exciting. Chad, given the rise of solid-state and flash-based storage, what impact does this type of storage component have on SQL Server operations today?
Well, solid state and flash is an up-and-coming technology. It's getting pretty mainstream now. Most of the major SAN manufacturers and drive manufacturers actually deliver a product that supports flash or solid state storage of some kind today. In the past, solid state was really a non-commodity, a specialty type product that people would buy only as a last resort when they couldn't solve the issue in other ways. Solid state is gonna hit on a number of fronts. Of course, there's a very large initiative to move to more of a green environment, so power-friendly environments and energy-efficient environments. Solid state really blows away your traditional hard drives when it comes to power consumption and heat dissipation and things of that nature. So you're really going to see a lot of benefit there. Random I/O access is actually is another area where solid state excels over traditional spindles. In the database world, sequential access when you're writing data is actually going to remain most likely on traditional spindles for some time until solid state actually catches up in the sequential write space. But when it comes to random I/Os, which are things that typically drive your OLTP type systems and systems that are heavily fragmented, solid